For this block, we will be breaking from our holiday theme to discuss one of the biggest stories in the world of sports. Earlier this afternoon, the IOC announced that the Russian Federation will be barred for the upcoming Winter Olympics in South Korea. This comes after a string of allegations of statewide doping after the Sochi Olympics in 2014. Russian athletes who can prove they are clean will be allowed to compete under a neutral flag. I'm joined by Jenny Berman and Mason Stalph to discuss the impact of this unprecedented decision coming this afternoon. So, Jenny, will you start off and explain to us what has happened?
So essentially what's happened is that this is an investigation that started in 2015 that now has come to light that essentially statewide support of doping for athletes in the Sochi Olympics. Some whistleblowers came forward and said this is what has been happening. So they started rescinding medals from a lot of the athletes who had medaled in the 2014 Sochi Olympics. The problem is that now they've decided, like, we really need to punish them for this. So this is sort of similar to the NCAA death penalty, where they're saying that you don't get to participate in the Olympics and only we get to invite certain athletes who have passed multiple more rigorous drug testing to compete under that neutral flag.
So Mason, what does this mean going forth?
It's huge. This is absolutely huge. I like your reference to the death penalty because this is exactly what it is. We're not just punishing any athlete that's been doping. We're punishing the entire Russian Federation, and basically any athlete who believes that they are clean, or even if they don't believe they are clean and want to try, you basically have 2 months to convince the IOC that you are clean, and then you get to compete under a neutral flag, which is already a very sticky situation in a lot of places, competing under a neutral flag. But what this really does is say, this sets a precedent that the IOC, doesn't matter how big the country is, doesn't matter how many representatives you're going to send, it doesn't matter if you're the last time host of the Winter Olympics, this does not fly.
Right, and the other thing to consider with that is just the fact that Russia's historically been a great nation in the Winter Olympics. As you said, they've sent so many athletes who have medaled and done well, and I believe it's been between the US and Russia for the most medals, but this isn't really a secret. We've known that Russia has had doping athletes all the way back from the Soviet Union.
And this is why I'm a little bit concerned over when this decision was released, because this wasn't a surprise to people. The punishment and the severity of it might have been, but the allegations and everything that came out weren't. And the fact that this is less than, or essentially 2 months and a couple of days before the Winter Olympics start, that is a little bit sketchy, because if you have the same 230 plus athletes that you had competing for Russia in 2014, all that are trying to basically go on a case-by-case basis of, I'm clean, I should go compete under a neutral flag, that's a lot of things that the IOC is going to have to deal with in the next 2 months.
I have a question. This timing, like you said, it is so close. Why haven't we been fixing this problem and said this is unacceptable 2 years ago?
I think it's been so hard to prove. They had to do a really lengthy investigation on this. I mean, to ban an entire country, one of the most historic Winter Olympics countries, from the Olympics, you have to be 100% sure that this is what happened. And it wouldn't have happened if not for the fact that 2 Russian scientists in that lab decided to blow the whistle on this and say, look, we've been cheating. But I mean, to that extent, you're talking about now you have to prove that what they're saying is right, everything else. And I don't necessarily say that this decision was something that they were waiting on in order to make it more difficult for the athletes, but I do think that this doesn't come as a surprise and is probably something they should have looked into earlier.
So Mason, what majority of these athletes do you think are going to make it clean and going to make it in the Olympics?
The question of how many do I think are going to make it clean is a lot bigger than how many are actually willing to go compete under a neutral flag, because Russia is such a proud country. First of all, the political situation essentially could put athletes in danger if they decide to say, you know what, to heck with Russia, I'm going to go compete under a neutral flag. I don't think that I think it's still a vast number, but I think that maybe half of the amount that could actually get cleared are actually going to be willing to take that risk because of the political situation, because of the pride in the Russian nation.
I mean, essentially, they're going to be, if let's say they win a medal, right? The Russian national anthem doesn't get to play, the flag doesn't fly, all that stuff. So essentially, it is a neutral athlete. And usually that designation has been used for refugees or people in difficult political situations, which this can count as, but almost in a different sort of way, where this is an Olympics imposed punishment as opposed to something else.
Well, guys, thank you for bringing your expertise at such a short notice and telling us what's going on. There's no doubt that Russia will be on the naughty list this year and getting cold for Christmas. But coming up next, we will find out what teams in college football playoff will be looking for under the tree.